Suriname is the smallest sovereign state in South America. Around 1/50th the size of Brazil, and with roughly 1% of their enormous southerly neighbours' population, Suriname has South American minnows in more ways than one. Culturally, Suriname has strong links to the Caribbean and the former colonial powers of England, and particularly the Netherlands. Though the region has been inhabited for at least 5,000 years, it was only in the 16th century that European colonists arrived. The Kingdom of England first established plantations in Suriname, founding a short-lived English colony, but they handed the land over to the Netherlands following the Second Anglo-Dutch War in exchange for land on what is now the east coast of the United States of America, previously called New Netherlands. The largest city in the region was called New Amsterdam, but after the English took control in exchange for Suriname, they renamed the city New York. The next 200 years would be absolutely abhorrent for the enslaved people of Suriname, even by the standards of slaves in other parts of South America, North America, and the Caribbean, which isn't setting the bar very high. Even after slavery was abolished, that just began an era of mass indentured servants in Suriname, particularly brought to the country from Asia. These horrors have transpired to give Suriname one of the most ethnically diverse populations on the planet, a rich tapestry of people with grave economic and political challenges in a tropical paradise, but the country, which only gained independence in 1975, already has among the highest level of human development within the developing world. If you're wondering why I haven't yet started talking about football and whether I'm ever going to, then 1, you must be new to the channel, hello, welcome, and 2, yes, I am. Despite its relatively minute size and population, Suriname has produced some truly remarkable footballers over the years. The likes of Edgar Davids, Clarence Seedorf, and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbaink were all born in Suriname. Meanwhile, the likes of Ruud Gullit, Frank Rijkaard, and Patrick Kluivert might not have been born there, but all had parents who were. Put bluntly, without Suriname, the Netherlands national team would have been a bit rubbish for the last 30 or 40 years. And the Netherlands' gain has most assuredly been Suriname's loss. Whilst their best talent has routinely chosen to represent the former motherland, Suriname have been left to stagnate. They currently sit 141st in the FIFA World Rankings behind Myanmar, Burundi, and St. Kitts and Nevis. And despite competing in CONCACAF rather than CONMEBOL, they have never qualified for either the World Cup or the Olympic Games. This would likely be very different were Suriname represented by the best players who are eligible to represent them, despite their tiny 590,000 population, making Suriname roughly as populated as Worcestershire or East Yorkshire. In light of that fact, I thought I would reignite my series taking a look at what a national team starting 11 and squad could look like if the best players eligible to represent them had chosen to do so. Previously featured national teams include the likes of Jamaica, Nigeria, and the United States, and for those of you who are new to the series, the channel, and or both, I simply take a pool of all the players eligible to represent a national team, and all those who could have been, and may still be, and then I attempt to put together the best possible 11 and squad from the available pool based on their current ability. Hopefully that is simple enough, and given that this intro is pretty lengthy even by my standards, I'll get cracking now rather than waste any more of your time. Here is my what if Suriname 11 if all eligible players had chosen to represent them. Goalkeeper: Kenneth Vermeer. Perhaps not the biggest name in this 11 to get us started, outside of the Netherlands at least, Kenneth Vermeer is still a very experienced and capable pair of hands. The 35-year-old has spent 15 of his 16 years within the professional game contracted to 2 of the big 3 in the Netherlands, firstly Ajax, and then their bitter rivals Feyenoord. The move caused a fair amount of shock and outrage as Vermeer became only the 14th man to make a direct transfer between the De Klassieke rivals. An eccentric and acrobatic number 1 who won league titles with both Dutch giants before joining MLS outfit Los Angeles FC in 2020, Vermeer was born in the Dutch capital of Amsterdam, but to 2 Surinamese parents. Due to Suriname's rules surrounding dual citizenship though, anyone who claims Dutch citizenship cannot represent Suriname, meaning Vermeer could only ever represent the Netherlands. He represented the Netherlands at literally every age group, all 8 of them, including the Olympic team, and he kept clean sheets in every one of his 5 senior caps against Germany, Estonia, Romania, Indonesia, and Spain, which isn't bad going. Right back, Shawn Climber. From a former Ajax player to a current one, starting at right back in our What If Suriname 11 is Shawn Climber, who joined Ajax from Utrecht during the early parts of this season. An extremely versatile and attack-minded fullback, Climber can play anywhere down the right flank, and he has even deputised a left back a couple of times for Ajax this season. Climber set Ajax back close to £4 million, but he has done a commendable job whenever he has been called upon this season, fresh off the back of an eye-catching couple of seasons at Utrecht. Born in the Netherlands, but of Surinamese descent, Climber hasn't been capped by any senior national team just yet, aged 26. He previously played 6 games for the Netherlands at under-20 and under-21 level. Centre-back Ryan Donk. Partnering one of the best centre-backs in the world who is up next, the right side of centre-back was one of the toughest spots to fill in this entire 11. Not due to a lack of talent, just because a number of candidates of all similar levels of ability. Jeffrey Broomer is probably the biggest name, capped 30 times by the Netherlands, but if I were picking a team today, which I am, I'd start Ryan Donk ahead of him, even at the age of 35. The former Club Brugge star, who has spent the last 8 years playing in Turkey, is playing some of the best football of his career right now, at an age in which most are starting to wind down their playing days. An intelligent and powerful giant of a man, Donk plays primarily as a centre-back, but is equally comfortable in holding midfield. That's because despite his size and strength, he's also a gifted technician with a sharp eye for a pass. A Galatasaray man since 2016, Donk previously played 16 times for the Netherlands at under-21 level, but despite having received a call-up to the senior team, he has never won a cap. Having been refused permission to represent Suriname despite having been called up, he expressed an interest in representing Turkey through citizenship in 2015. But just last month, in the 2022 World Cup qualifiers, Donk won his first 2 caps for Suriname, having just been granted permission to represent them, enjoying 2 wins in his first 2 games and even grabbing a goal. Centre-back Virgil van Dijk. The star name in this 11, by most measures, prior to the horrible ACL injury to his right knee earlier this season, Virgil van Dijk was widely regarded as being the best centre-back in all of world football. A fantastic athlete and reader of the game, Van Dijk coasts through most games in 3rd gear, and he is always capable of stepping it up a notch against top-class opposition. His rise was a gradual but impressive one, and he didn't win his first cap for the Netherlands until he was 23. Even now, aged 29, Van Dijk has still only won 36 caps, which is a pretty modest figure for a man of his talents. The Liverpool star, who was formerly the most expensive defender in the world, was born in the Netherlands to a Dutch father and a Surinamese mother. It has also been reported that Van Dijk has Chinese heritage on his mother's side, possibly due to her ancestors being among the large cohort of indentured servants brought to Suriname from Asia in the post-slavery era. Left back Owen Wendell. Owen Wendell might not be one of the better known names in this 11 just yet, but I suspect that could all be about to change. Wendell only actually turned 21 earlier this season, but he is already closing in on 100 first-team appearances for AZ Alkmaar, and his stock is rising at pace. Capped 6 times by the Netherlands, given Wendell's performances in the Europa League and on the international stage in particular, I must admit, I'm surprised he hasn't been linked with moves to some of Europe's top teams. My apologies to any AZ fans watching. A quick and creative left-back who is surprisingly firm and aggressive in the tackle, like Van Dijk, Wendell has a Dutch father and a Surinamese mother, and also like Van Dijk, it is the Netherlands that he represents at international level. Defensive midfield, Georginio Winalde. The second Liverpool player in this 11, and the second player in this 11 who was nominated for the 2019 Ballon d'Or, Georginio Winalde finished 26th in Ballon d'Or voting that year with 1 vote, whilst Virgil van Dijk finished 2nd in Ballon d'Or voting with 679 votes. I must admit that I had my doubts about Liverpool paying £25 million to sign Wijnaldum after he was relegated at Newcastle, where he had looked like a world beater 1 week and practically invisible the next. I didn't envisage him transitioning into a much deeper role, but then, I suppose, that's why Liverpool employ Jurgen Klopp and not me. Wijnaldum still plays in more of an advanced role for the Netherlands, with whom he has bagged 22 goals from 73 caps. And given that both his parents are of Surinamese descent, the current stand-in Netherlands captain has to start in this 11, but it's in a much deeper role than he does for the Orange. Central midfield. Calvin Stengs. One of the best young players in the Eredivisie, Calvin Stengs is primarily a right-sided forward, but he is very comfortable playing as a number 10, and he's made 7 appearances this season in central midfield. With that being the case, I don't feel it's too outrageous for me to shoehorn him into my midfield 3, and there's no way that I could have left him out. A tall and gifted young man, Stengs has quick feet and excellent awareness, but he has made it quite clear that he's in no rush to leave AZ Alkmaar, which is some commitment given that there must be no lack of clubs who are interested in him. Once again, Stengs is Netherlands born with a Dutch father and a Surinamese mother, and he has won 6 caps for the Netherlands senior team to date. Central midfield. Ryan Graven Birch. I never like to heap too much pressure on young players whilst they're still effectively kids. I don't think it's very healthy, but let's just say Ryan Graven Birch is certainly someone worth keeping an eye on. At the age of 18, Graven Birch is already running games at times for the best team in the Eredivisie. Leggy and brilliant on the ball, Graven Birch is equally capable of playing as a 6, as an 8, or as a 10. I could have played him in the holding role and Winalde further forward, but I wouldn't want to shackle the youngster at all. Graven Birch broke Clarence Seedorf's record as Ajax's youngest player in the Eredivisie 2 seasons ago, and he has already played 50 games for his boyhood club, in addition to having won a couple of caps for the Netherlands senior team. Right wing. Steven Bergwijn. Steven Bergwijn hasn't yet set the Premier League alight since joining Tottenham Hotspur for almost £27 million a little over 12 months ago, but I still feel as though he just about merits a starting berth within this 11. Quick and versatile, Bergwijn can play anywhere across a front 3, and he scored 15 goals in his last full season at PSV. A star man for the Netherlands at a couple of different youth levels, Bergwijn has won 12 caps for the senior team to date, and it's worth bearing in mind that he is still only 23. Left wing. Noah Lang. Giving Ajax the edge over AZ Alkmaar as the most represented side in this 11, I think, there were a number of much bigger names who I could have picked on the left flank, but I just don't see how I could leave out Noah Lang. Currently on loan in Belgium with Club Brugge, the 21-year-old has been nothing short of sensational this season. Capable of playing out wide on either flank, or even as a number 10, Lang has scored 12 goals and made 6 assists from 20 starts in the league this season. A feisty 5'10" technician with bags of potential, Lang's biological father was of Surinamese descent, but he was raised by his stepfather, Noordin Boukari, who some of you may recall is a former Moroccan international who also played for Ajax in the same position as Lang. The youngster has been a regular fixture for the Netherlands at youth team level, but he is yet to win his first senior cap. Centre forward, Danielle Marlon. Capping this 11 off in some style, only the remarkable Georgios Giakoumakis has scored more goals in the Eredivisie this season than 22-year-old Danielle Marlon. An Arsenal player up until 2017, the Gunners may live to regret letting go of Marlon given his meteoric rise since signing for PSV. This season, the youngster has bagged a pretty remarkable 23 goals and 6 assists, with plenty of the campaign still to come. A wily young forward who loves to make that Henry-esque run between fullback and centre-back, Marlon can play two-touch, he can beat a man on his own, and he has an instinctive finish on his favoured right foot. More than 50 career goals, having only recently turned 22, is pretty impressive going, and Marlon has already scored 2 goals from 8 caps for the Netherlands senior team. That is my 11, but I will very quickly round off my 23-man squad, featuring 1 or 2 big names. In true 2010 North Korea fashion, I seem to have only selected 2 goalkeepers, but you'll just have to let that slide. As backup to Kenneth Vermeer, I've gone for former Heerenveen shot stopper Warner Haan, who very recently signed for Anderlecht and won his first caps for Suriname. Covering in defence, we are a little left-back heavy, but that is just the way the talent falls, with Wolfsburg's Jeffrey Broomer, Club Brugge star Stefano Denswell, who is on loan there from Bologna, Feyenoord fullback Rijkano Arps, and young Kenneth Paal completing our defensive options. I shouldn't think Virgil van Dijk will have too much to worry about, but there is some decent depth there nonetheless. The competition steps up a little in midfield, starting with veteran midfield anchor Nigel de Jong, now aged 35, and currently playing in Qatar. He is joined by Afro-donning Crystal Palace utility man Jairo Riedewald, former QPR star Jadon Cherry, who now plays in Israel and won his first caps for Suriname just last week, and Galatasaray wide man Ryan Babel, formerly of Ajax and Liverpool of course, who has won 68 caps for the Netherlands and is still in their current squad now, aged 34. Finally, and unsurprisingly the strongest area of the squad, we come to the 3 backup forwards, Jarano Kerk, Quincy Promes and Justin Kluivert. Kluivert and Promes were 2 of the first names that I thought of when drafting this video, along with Van Dijk and Wijnaldum, but ultimately I felt I couldn't leave Noah Lang or Danielle Marlon out. To be quite honest, I'd happily start Promes ahead of Bergwijn, but the Spartak star very rarely plays on the right flank, and he hasn't been so good this season that I had no option but to start him, which was the case with a few of those who did start. Promes has won 47 caps for the Netherlands, meanwhile Kluivert has won 2, and Jarano Kerk is as yet uncapped. The least known of the trio, Kerk stars for Utrecht, where he has scored 5 goals and made 4 assists so far this season. In charge of the 11, because why not, I have gone for Henk Fraser with Clarence Seedorf as his assistant, both of whom were born in the Surinamese capital of Paramaribo, but both of whom represented the Netherlands at international level. Fraser is the current Sparta Rotterdam boss, meanwhile Seedorf has been out of work since being sacked by Cameroon in 2019. So that is it for today's video, but thank you all sincerely as ever for watching. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video, I really appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications by hitting the little bell icon for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on social media sites like Twitter or Instagram via the username at HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.